Hey guys, welcome back to the end of the peacetime of the life and suffering of Sir Brandt. We're heading into the Revolt, the dynamic section of this game. Man, it's going to be exciting. I didn't know we'd get here. I didn't know we'd be able to get there, but we somehow managed to get through peacetime without losing our head. Even despite our very low stats, despite our very low strength, very low intelligence, very low estate, our family is completely broken up. Our occupation is completely illegitimate. The family structure is completely gone. The family has fallen apart. Even though we're kind of wealthy, I just can't believe it. Everything has gone downhill, but somehow we managed to get through. Let's try to get it through the rest of the way. The peaceful years are over. The storm of the revolt is brewing in Anazati. Tomorrow will be the day when you will reap the harvest of your deeds during these 8 years.
At last, the day has come which would decide my fate, as well as that of my family, and perhaps the entire empire. The day of the revolt.
The revolt begins. This event is a consequence of your previous actions. Conditions met. The free city. Okay, Chapter 5. The revolt begins. Mayor Eggment is dead, and now you lead those who follow him. They trust you and hope that you will lead them to freedom. Gaius Tempest must hear you. He will have to make concessions. But you are not the only leader of an incipient rebellion. Sophia and her soldiers are planning to take over Anazati, and they have no interest in negotiating with the overseer. Harsh and merciless, they believe that freedom can only be taken by force. Their revolution will inevitably destroy the empire. Aside from them, disgruntled citizens are rising up all over the city. Priests of the new faith and many of the nobles of the mantle are now sided with the commoners. After hearing Eggman's fervent speeches and your impassioned pleas, the masses are now waging a desperate struggle for their rights. It cannot be stopped anymore. Felipe El Ferro is the first to realize it. His scheme has birthed a genuine revolt, and the secret chancellery has lost any chance it once had of putting it down. Fearing for his life, the advisor flees Anazati. Okay, the shadow of the imperial executioner that has loomed over you all these years is now gone. You are finally free, and soon your city will be free too. Alright, let's see here. So what we have here is the revolt. The general strength of the revolt, forces gathered by the rebels, solidarity among them, support for the rebellion among the townspeople. The outcome of the struggle for Anazati will depend on how strong the revolt will be in the moment of the decisive collision. So right now we're at 3, we're at a stalemate. Troops. Military forces you have managed to gather under your command. So right now I have a squad. Clergy. Your influence among the priesthood of Anazati. It depends on the support of the clergy whether you will be able to prevail in the struggle for the city. I have cautious support. Nobles. Your influence among the noblemen of Anazati depends on the support of the nobility whether you will be able to prevail in the struggle in the city, so I have cautious support. The townsfolk. Your influence among the common people of Anazati. It depends on the support of the commoners whether you will be able to prevail in the struggle for the city, their trust. So we need to get all 3 of these to 3 if we're going to be able to win. The rebel event has happened. Conditions side with the revolt. You take the side of the revolt. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to play the other side. Victory conditions. A peaceful victory versus a military victory. So leading the revolt. Eliminate Sophia. You succeed Sophia as the leader of all the rebel forces in Anazati. The revolt strength is greater than or equal to 6. General strength for revolt. Your troops have to be 1 or greater. Common support have to be 3 or greater. Clergy support has to be 3 or greater. Nobles have to be 1 or greater. And the current balance of power in Magra who rules the province. So it has to be the commoners that are in power. Okay, and we can do a military victory if we succeed Sophia as the leader of all the rebel forces in Anazati. So either way, I have to eliminate Sophia. Wow, unbelievable. The revolt has to be greater, strength has to be greater or equal to 6, so that is a priority. Troop strength has to be 2 or greater, and it's just the common folk that I need, not the clergy or the nobles. So I'll have to remember that. Chapter 5, The Revolt. At dawn. For years now, Anazati has been simmering like a cookpot over a slow flame. The powerlessness of the simple folk, unable to change the old order, has gradually given way to rage. Finally, this anger became stronger than their age-old submission to the higher estate and their fear of divine retribution. This rage was the spark that lit the fire of the revolution. All of Anazati's commoners have risen up in rebellion, workers, artisans, merchants, beggars. They all long to break free of noble tyranny and the perpetual suffering that is their lot. The most daring among them have joined the last straw. The secret society has sent entire squads of trained soldiers out into the streets. They hand out guns and bombs to the people, weapons that give them a chance to wage war on equal footing against noblemen descended from the generations of warriors. But the most dangerous weapon the rebels possess is the people's court. The commoners have claimed the right to sentence their enemies to true death. The first nobles executed by the last straw this very night serve as proof that these sentences are real. For the first time in the history of the empire, the divine force of the law is in possession not only of the noblemen, but also of the common estate. Among the rebels are many new believers. They are ready to take up arms to defend their faith and freedom from the lots. They are led by Lenart, the abbot of the temple by the silver tree. Prefect Alborn's allegiance remains unknown. The supreme judge has taken such pains to give the lowly estate more rights. Will he support a revolt that strives to do the same? Anazati has recently been rocked by a series of spontaneous assemblies and protests. The mob demands equal rights for all estates and freedom from the tyranny of nobles. The authorities must recognize the new faith and grant the commoners the right to choose their own lot. By nightfall, the rebels had disposed of the guards and taken over the city gate. In a matter of minutes, Anazati was under their control. It is the duty of Overseer Gaius Tempest to crush the revolt. The Arcanian nobleman feared for his own position and power, so he was reluctant to punish this rebellious city as discontent slowly grew year by year. But the ensuing uprising left him no choice. The Overseer has announced a full-scale mobilization. In the morning, the Legion will march towards Anazati under his command and attempt to return the city to imperial authority with fire and sword. The expeditious arrival of the Legion is the only hope the nobles have left now that they are locked inside the city. And members of the higher estate, especially the old aristocratic families, fear the upcoming rampage and strive to keep order on the streets. Meanwhile, the Inquisition, led by Sister Jean, is trying to stop the new believers and urge the people to reject the revolt. Both groups are aware that if the rest of the province follows Anazati into rebellion and chaos, the empire itself and the divine order will begin to crumble. After nightfall, the city grows quiet. Its courtyards and squares are empty. In mansions and palaces, hasty negotiations are held, schemes are concocted. In dark cellars, the revolt is being prepared and armed units are gathering. Parishes are getting ready to defend the temples of the new faith against the Inquisition. All citizens, rich and poor, common and noble, are arming themselves, some with ancestral swords, others with cleavers. Anazati is preparing, waiting for the dawn. As the Legion arrives for the assault, the rebels assemble into a militia and get ready to fend off the Imperial army. But there is little unity in their camp. Their leaders are already mirrored in a power struggle. There are also defenders of the Imperial Order within the city walls, members of the old aristocracy, soldiers of the Inquisition, priests of the Old Faith, commoners unwilling to defy the law and the twins' design. These people, too, refuse to lay down their arms. The first rays of the rising sun light up the horizon. This day will go down in history. Your entire life has led you to this moment. Step by step, you have made yourself the man you are now. Your actions today could alter the course of history, but are you ready to go the distance? What will have become of you by the time the sun sets? So we're at a stalemate. Right now, we're getting pretty close to winning it. Alright, so we have a few things that could happen during the revolt. The Legion is defeated. The revolt wins a decisive victory over the Imperial forces. Alright. Peace with the Overseer. Overseer Gaius Tempest is forced to accept the demands of the revolt. The city is defended. The rebels manage to fight back the attack of the Legion and hold Anazati for some time. The revolt is defeated. Wow. The revolt is suppressed by fire and sword, and Anazati is back under the rule of the Empire. Okay, so we need to keep that revolt strength up if we want to do that. We're a leader in the revolt, so we can't have the revolt strength go to 0. The surrender of the revolt. Okay. The Anazati Massacre. The revolt led by Sophia wins at the cost of relentless massacre. If Sophia is leading the revolt and the revolt is greater than or equal to 6. Okay, so we got to make sure that Sophia is not leading. We got to make sure that I'm leading it, because she is just too bloodthirsty. Dark times. Neither side succeeds. Chaos and disorder spread all over the Empire. Okay, so if we fail to achieve any other outcome, if someone fails to win, everyone loses. And then true death. Okay, well that's always. Events that could happen to the Brandt family. The family chooses to remain in the rebellious city of Anazati. The family has perished. The family has fled. The family is saved. Deeds that you can accomplish on your chosen path. Escape from the city. You flee the violent streets of Anazati. You can lead the revolt. You succeed Sophia as leader of all the rebel forces in Anazati. You can be a defender of the Empire, side with the Empire, or you can be the rebel, which is what you are right now. Revolt screen is okay. So let's take a look at the revolt screen. Okay, so this is just a general outcome. Mustering the forces. The crimson sun slowly rises above the horizon. You make your way through a city in chaos, carefully observing what is happening on the streets. The rebellion is flaring up again after a night of calm. Once again, the commoners are taking to the square in droves. The grim resolve in the rebels' eyes speaks volumes. They are determined to seize their freedom or die trying. There are others, however, who are huddling inside their homes, locking their doors and praying to survive the revolt unscathed. With every passing minute, you see more people carrying banners. They bear a hand clutching a lantern, the mark of the last straw. The conspirators have left the shadows at last. They hand out guns to the common folk, using their last precious minutes to quickly teach them how to fire them. The artisans are out on the street too, cobbling together makeshift shields out of wood and nails to protect against nobles and their blades. Fortunately for the rebels, the nobles remain divided. Old noble bloodlines have sided with Doria's Autumn. The Arcanian has sworn to bring down the revolt by any means necessary. His noble militia now stand guard in the Silver District, where the city's most eminent aristocrats have their home. They represent the greatest threat to the revolt. Many nobles of the mantle, however, are all too eager to violate their oath of fealty and side with the rebels. Though ennobled to serve the Empire, they no longer want to suffer under the boots of the high-born Arcanians and human gentry. But there are many more who are still undecided, soldiers and low-ranking officers of the Legion, from the city garrison, officials and functionaries. They have all found themselves caught between the Overseer's orders and the People's Revolt. Now, gotta make sure we succeed here. So, gotta make sure. Right now we're at 1 on everything, except for the common folk, which is 2. And to make sure we get the revolt strength to 6, get the troops up. Common folk 3, clergy to 3, nobles need to be at stay at 1. I want to resolve this peacefully. And then power needs to be 3 or 4. Let's take a look at power real quick. Power is 4, commoners are in power, we're okay. Let's move on. Many of them are biding their time, hoping the Legion or the Prefecture will spring into action and quell the unrest. But the Prefecture has yet to react. The city prefect, Sir Elborn, still has not made it clear which side he is on. Even the clergy has been swept up in the strife. Abbot Lenart is gathering new believers for the procession to the Silver Tree, where the people will elect a new patriarch. Old believer priests and common folk who prefer to cling to the lots and save their souls stand in opposition. Even the Inquisition, whose duty it is to protect the Church of the Twin Gods against the heresy, has been tainted by this schism. The true fight for the fate of Anazati will begin in a matter of hours. You have had 8 years to carry influence among the people of the city. It's time to put your connections to the test. Who can you sway to your side? Who will be willing to sacrifice their lives and fight for your cause? Oh, wow. I have absolutely nothing but biding my time. Okay. This will be a long day indeed. It'll take all your wits and composure to do what must be done. You spend these last few hours of quiet, biding your time and mustering your strength. You keep your ear to the ground and plan your next move. The timing for this rest would not have been more perfect. The storm is yet to come. Both the defenders of the imperial regime and the rebels need time to gather their forces for the pivotal clash. Gaia's Tempest and the Legion will not arrive in Anazati until nightfall. Only then will the fate of the revolt be decided in the ultimate struggle. Gosh, I hope they'll actually give me a choice, okay? I want one side to succeed. I don't care who it is, but if we get into a stalemate, the entire empire will die. The Legion is already on the march toward the rebellious city. What can the rebels do to oppose it? Everything depends on how the conflict of the day plays out before the sun sets. The prefecture and the gendarmes, will they pursue the rebels or take their side? Lenart's procession of new believers to the Silver Tree, will the people elect their first patriarch? The disjointed groups of insurgents, will they be able to unite, and if so, who will unite them? Your thoughts are interrupted. The sound of gunfire fills the city streets again. The lull is over. You can wait no longer. Cornered beast. This event is a consequence of your previous action. Conditions met past the locks. Noon approaches. Your thoughts keep returning to Sophia as you muster your forces for the impending fight for the city future. Where is she now? What are her plans? What are her orders for the last straw? Joined by your followers, you carefully make your way through the now empty streets. Danger could lurk behind any corner. You take another turn, you hear someone moaning in pain. You quickly zigzag to the edge of the Silver District. At the end of the street is a square in which several wooden stakes have been harshly erected. Nailed to each stake is a commoner dressed in bloody, tattered rags. What is going on here? You signal for your men to take cover by the wall of an old factory. You hear the hooves of a single horse clatter along cobblestones. A stately horseman rides toward the stakes, a luxurious cloak draped across his shoulders. You know you have known his dire form since you were a lad. The Arcanian's arrogant voice echoes through the square. Dorius Auten says, "People of Anazati, heed my words. I am Dorius Auten, High Commander of Magra, leader of the noble militia." Auten points the tip of his sword at the writhing commoners. These low-born wretches dare to sneak into the Silver District and rob noble homes. But I will not grant them the mercy of a lesser death by the blade. They will live and suffer as befits their lot. This is their divine duty. Know this, rebels. Anyone who follows your precious Sophia will share the same fate. I know my runaway servant's wily ways. She'll send you all at me without a second's thought, and you will all die by my hand. She won't care. She's completely insane. All she wants is to see Anazati burn to the ground. Your men exchange uneasy glances. You motion for them to remain quiet. You need to stay out of sight for now. Sophia, I know you're around here, somewhere. You've grown up, but you're still my property. I can see your people turning their backs on you. All hope is lost. Come back to your lord and master. You will be mine forever. The lone rider is motionless and silent in the empty square. It is quiet. Even the captive commoners stifle their moans. Bang! A squad of last straw rebels spills out of an alleyway and rushes at Auten. Sophia is the first among them, her plain shirt stained with blood, a long, heavy musket in her hands. You lying, blue-faced whoreson! I want him alive. The People's Court will deal with him. Sophia stops and takes aim. Another gunshot rumbles. Auten's mare collapses, taking his rider to the ground. The rebels run towards Auten, celebrating his downfall, but then you hear the deafening clanking of hooves coming from the Silver District. The noble militia, the riders are waiting to ambush Sophia. The elite cavalrymen smash into the last straw squad with a heavy steel gauntlet. The rebels are taken by surprise. They are about to retreat. Auten gets up from under his horse, his sword at the ready. Not one step back, damn you. We'll fight them to the end. The people are hugging Revolt, trying to stay out of sight. They watch the fight anxiously, waiting your orders. It's time to act. If Sophia is captured, she will not be there to escape to lead the rebellion. However, if she escapes, the revolt will be ruled by her merciless, vindictive cruelty. This is about more than just Sophia, you remind yourself. This confrontation could decide the fate of the entire revolt. So, I have a choice. I could rush to Sophia's side. I can't get rid of Sophia. I can't stop Sophia. I can order a retreat. And then maybe capture Sophia and have her executed? Wow. Alright, let's take a look here. The revolt. How do we win this? So both a military victory and a peaceful victory has me leading the revolt from the front. It's a tough decision. It's a tough decision here. We're gonna rush to her side and we're gonna try to save her. I think that's what we have to do. We have to preserve the revolt first and foremost. You give your orders quietly. Ready your weapons, be quiet, and follow me. You must rescue Sophia and her people. The rage of battle and the deafening rumble of gunfire render the noble riders blinded deaf to your approach. You bring your squad closer, waiting for the perfect moment to take them by surprise. The riders keep pushing. The ring around them becomes smaller and smaller. Squad, attack! Our cause is just. Sophia, we're coming. Death to tyrants. Steel grinding against steel, mouths with spitting smoke, stench of blood, horses nigh in terror. You used to walk to Sir Tiber's school along this very street, but now it is the site of a terrible battle. To find Sophia in the chaotic skirmish, you follow the flashes of magical yellow light. One by one, the riders fall from their saddles, paralyzed by her spell. Sophia's sepia eyes burn with rage. Come here, Autumn. I'll show you what your servant can do. Driven by blinding rage, the desperate young woman faces the armed and armored riders on her own. You finally make your way to her side. Sophia. John? Finally, I thought they got you. Come on, let's crush them together. Let's see what kind of relationship we have with Sophia here. Where is Sophia? Sophia? -5. Okay, maybe I should have just killed her. You scream over the sounds of the skirmish. No, this is a battle you cannot win. You have to abandon the captives. You have to get out of this trap right now. Sophia takes a moment to catch her breath and return to her senses. The furious yellow light in her eyes die down. Her loyal fighters form a shield around her, blocking another assault by Autumn's riders. Reinforcements on horseback are already heading their way from the noble Silver District. You grab Sophia by the elbow. Your voice hoarse, you scream an order at the rebels. Retreat. The square down the narrow back streets and alleyways under the cover of fire. The riders quickly lose track of you. Only Autumn's scream of rage reaches your ears now. Just wait till I get my hands on you, filthy slut. You better thank the twins. I have more important matters to attend to. In the quiet space surrounded by several houses and boarded up doors and windows, Sophia's rebels take a moment to lick their wounds. They join your fighters next. Few of those rebels survived, but they have the guns, training, and tenacity to see this through to the very end. While everyone recovers, you wander away to find Sophia. She is sitting on the doorstep of an abandoned house, far from the rest of you. I almost got us killed, John. If it weren't for you, Autumn tried to turn our own men against us. You told them I was crazy. I couldn't let them keep lying like that. Put a hand on Sophia's shoulder. Ever since this all began, you would have both known that the revolt would cost you dearly. Right now, all you can do is keep fighting, no matter what. And if any other members of the last straw get scared and try to switch sides, when faced with fire and blood, you will show them no mercy. Sophia should know that you will be by her side until the very end. Sophia gets back on her feet, angry flecks of gold glowering in her eyes again. You're right, no mercy. If they listen to the enemy, they're enemies too. I won't make the same mistake again. I'm through second-guessing myself. The people need me. My place is here, in the street. I need to lead the people, give them a purpose, give them a leader, and grind the old order into dust. There's a big gathering at the Empire Square, over by the Chancellery. I should be there. If we want to fend off the Legion, I gotta bring this whole city together under the banner of the last straw. But we've still got plenty of enemies in Anazati. I hear Autumn and his militia have just moved to the prefecture. They want to execute Egelborn and his judges for treason. There's lots of people by the prefecture. We need them on our side. Who knows? Maybe Egelborn will join us. You should head there. I'll start getting people together in Empire Square. Sophia squeezes your hand so hard it hurts. And come back to me as soon as you can, okay, John? I can't do this without you. Sophia is leading the revolt. You squeeze her hand in return, and then you part ways, and Sophia and her most loyal rebels leave the Empire Square. Your next stop is the prefecture. So the revolt is +2, and troops are +1. Gain some willpower. This might be the bloody band. The bloody revolt. They saved a bloodthirsty killer. The prefecture under siege. The searing sun looms high in the sky above the rebellious city. The square in front of the prefecture is packed with commoners. Just a moment ago, they boldly demanded that the judges and gendarmes side with the rebellion. But now they are terrified. They fear the noble army that is coming for them. Their calls for rebellion are gone, replaced by frightened screams. Trees thunder against the battlefield. The earth quakes beneath their feet. A noble militia led by Dorius Auden carves a path through the human sea. The terrified rebels scatter as the riders approach. The gendarmes remain where they are, forming a tight circle around the prefecture and Alborn. The prefect calls out to the crowd, his voice hoarse. Everyone stay calm, let them through. Do not draw your weapons. Auden's riders push the mob aside and eventually reach the tall building. The Arcanian commander draws in his reins only when the gendarmes all that separate him from the prefecture stairs. Prefect Alborn, how dare you disobey the orders of the province's rightful rulers? You have abused your position to appease the rebels and defy imperial rule. This inconceivable rebellion is your fault. It's time for you to accept your well-earned punishment. In the name of Archduke Melendez, I hereby order you and your gendarmes to surrender your weapons. The supreme judge of the prefecture maintains his composure in the face of this recrimination. I only obey the laws of the Empire. Sir Auden, not you or your runaway Archduke. Auden's face contorts into a predatory grin. Excellent. You've had your chance to save face, old man. Instead of a dignified execution, you and your cronies will hang like the foul rabble you betrayed us for. Auden lifts his sword skyward, preparing to order an assault. The riders behind are about to attack. The gendarmes ready their clubs. Their hands are trembling. They will not stand a chance against the noble cavalry. The mob begins to shift, about to flee the square. The fate of this moment hangs by a thread. I can rouse the mob and encourage them to defend the prefect. Or I can stay out of it. Auden's riders advance on the gendarmes. If you do nothing, the prefecture will fall. You need to act now. You leap into the mob, scrambling up onto the overturned carriage, and call out to the throng. You hear voices throughout the crowd. It's Brandt. John Brandt wants to say something. You shout as loudly as you can. People of Anazati, do not fear the wrath of the nobles. Your lives are finally yours for the first time since the empire was founded. Cast off the lot of humility. You are many, and they are few. It is time to fight. For years and years, the prefecture has always been there to protect the rights and freedoms of the common man. We cannot let it fall into enemy hands. Stop them. Protect the prefect. Alborn hears you over the din of the struggle on the prefecture stairs. His voice joins yours. Show them you have no fear. Take the right by force. I, Prefect Alborn, I am on your side. Your words inspire the people with a sense of solidarity. They have so much to lose now, and they will not surrender their freedom without a fight. In the blink of an eye, the unwieldy throng bristles with heavy sticks, wooden clubs, and makeshift spears. You start giving orders from your impromptu podium, commanding this newfound army to assault the rear of Auden's cavalry. Cut the rebel down, no mercy. The cavalry turns to face them with an onslaught of sharp steel. Bones crack beneath hooves. Swords slice through the defenseless flesh. The stench of blood fills the square as fallen bodies dissipate into gleaming dust. You keep doling out furious commands, trying to ensure that the common folk are not routed. Hold the line, stand your ground. Better a lesser death than eternal slavery. The riders smash into them again. The line holds. The people have numerical superiority, and their spears and clubs strike back. The cavalrymen begin to drown in the sea of humanity. The gendarmes hit Otten's warriors from the rear. One by one, the riders are dragged from their horses. The noble militia falters. Traitorous filth, retreat! Otten and surviving horsemen turn, tail, and flee, furiously carving a path with their swords. At least half of Otten's men have fallen in this battle. Cries of victory fill the square. Commoners shake their weapons, eager to follow your orders. But it is far too early to celebrate. You have only fought off one assault. Prefect Elborn finds you in the boisterous crowd. John, your courage has saved the prefecture. I'm with you until the end. Whatever you need from me, you will have it. You need to hurry now. The noble militia were seen in the city pales in comparison to the forces of the Legion. The noble militia we've seen in the city pales in comparison to the forces of the Legion. I'll gather our forces at the prefecture and establish a unified command structure. You should find Abbot Lenart and aid him in any way you can. This procession must be en route to the Silver Tree by now. The enemies of the new faith are waiting there, enemies and weapons in hand. They'll massacre each other if we don't stop them. Brandt, the city is a powder keg with a short fuse. More fire and blood is the last thing we need. What we need is more allies. Having Lenart on our side is crucial. We need a spiritual leader who can unite the city against the Legion. Augustine Elborn is a rebel. You not Elborn, the fate of the feud between the two faiths will be decided at the Silver Tree. You have to be there. You wish the prefect luck, then muster your loyal forces and head for the tree. Alright, well, we have one more troop, and we have Revolution is a bloodbath. Anazati, filling the streets of the Temple District. They are led by Abbot Lenart. The new believers walk peacefully behind him, many of them women and elderly. They are unarmed. Their faces show neither fear nor anger, the march of the new faith. They are so drastically unlike the throngs of the rebels who are currently ransacking the streets and looting noble houses. The procession slowly makes its way toward the temple at the Silver Tree. The temple has always been there. The patriarchs of the church accept their sacred duty, along with the heavy burden of responsibility for their flock before the twin gods. When a patriarch speaks, the twins pay heed, and every 8 years it falls upon the patriarch to proclaim in their sight how their world is humbly following the lot it has been given. Long, long after the twins descend to our world, the patriarchs came to be elected at the conclave by the clergy. This tradition has continued for many years. Today, dozens of priests have come to the temple in spite of the unrest, to conduct the rite and spare the twins' world of their wrath. But now, thousands of commoners are walking to the same temple to elect the new patriarch themselves. You and your followers take a side street to the temple, avoiding the immense procession. Soon, the square by the tree is packed. But the stairs to the temple doors cannot be reached. A stalwart phalanx of champions of faith block the way, with Jean in the lead. You are joined by the Inquisitors, those who have decided to walk the path of the old faith until the very end. I will not allow you into the temple, Lenart. These heretics will not make you patriarch. Father Lenart slowly begins to ascend the stairs. He does not argue with Jean. The abbot simply faces her with a humble smile and gestures at the people standing behind him. Doubt clouds the champions' faces. Lenart's possession is truly staggering. Even if they are mere commoners, even if they are unarmed and empty-handed, there are simply too many of them to be stopped by a few dozen old believers. Sister Jean, look at them. Are they truly heretics? All of them? They are just people, our brothers and sisters in faith. Why would the Inquisition treat us like enemies? We do not reject the twin gods. Nay, we seek them with our every thought. Jean replies, "You rejected the law of the younger, when you chose to seek your own lots. No, Jean, the only thing we reject is Astasius' error. This argument has been going on for years, Leonard. I know each and every point you can make. Don't even bother. You will not enter the temple. And all these people, you're just dragging them down to the foot of the pillar along with you. How can you still not understand this after so many years? What do you think you're doing, Leonard? Don't you fear the wrath of the gods? I do not, Jean. When I become patriarch, I will tell the twins that we still love and revere them just as we always have, even as we seek a different path to them. The twins will hear us, they will listen, they will understand. There will be no wrath of the gods. Beginning to firmly ascend the stairs to the doors of the temple, the champion's swords do not deter them. Jean watches the massive congregation approach her, her eyes filled with remorse. She raises an arm, about to give her final order. Champions of the faith, protect the sacred temple, fight to the bitter end. You reach the foot of the stairs as she speaks these words. This is your last chance to intervene. So I can save them, the new believers, from bloodshed, or I can walk away. Peace between the Inquisition and the New Believers. Sister Jean is right. The dispute between them has been going on for years. Neither side will ever yield to the other. Right now, there is only one thing you can do. Rescue as many of them as you can from what is to come. You gesture to your followers, hurriedly spread out and guide the people away from here, as many as they can. Jean shouts out, "Go in the name of the younger." The champions of the faith obey Jean's order. They get into formation and begin advancing on the new believers, weapons in hand. The unarmed mob recoils in fear, but those in front are pushed from behind and driven onto the blades. Blood splatters into the stairs of the sacred temple. The woman's voice lets out a shrill scream. Panic spreads throughout the mob like a wildfire. Chaos fills the minds of women and men. Begin pushing and pulling, dashing, recoiling like frightened animals, and the warriors of the church keep advancing, unrelenting and lethal. Your men have reached the edge of the square. They try to guide the new believers down back alleys, shouting here, over here, but for many of them, it's already too late. A mighty gust of wind rushes over the square, and roars, howls, almost screams, filled with remorse, agony, and wrath. The earth begins to tremble beneath your feet, before your very eyes, as though in some terrible nightmare. The roof of the sacred temple begins to shake, and the pillars start to sway back and forth. No, Jean shouts. The world is turned upside down, the kaleidoscope shaken by a massive hand. For several seconds, everything bends together. You fall flat on your back. Slowly, you come to your senses. You are surrounded by dozens of bodies and chunks of rock. What the? Where the temple at the silver tree once stood, there is nothing. The grand, majestic structure is no more. It has been leveled to the ground. Remnants of its walls and roof are scattered across the square. The stairs that once led to it have been ground into gravel. The cloud of dust slowly settles upon the square. After the dust comes the leaves. Thousands and thousands of leaves shed by the silver tree. They cover the corpses of the truly dead like a pale white shroud. The entire square glows as the bodies of those yet to be reborn dissolve into nothingness. There are so many that the light stings your eyes, even though the thick dust that still hangs over all of it. Just how many people met their deaths today? Sister Jean and her warriors are gone, buried beneath the rocks. The order of the Inquisition and Anazati is finished. You stagger to your feet and go to where you last saw Father Leonard. You soon spot the edge of his once white cassock pinned by a dozen broken pillars. It takes all of your strength to roll the heavy stone away and drag the abbot out from under the rubble. Leonard is wounded but conscious. He looks around, trying to understand what has happened, then slowly falls to his knee. A loud groan escapes his lips. Blood and tears trickle down Leonard's face, mixing together. The abbot chokes on the dust. His eyes are fixed on the ruins of what was once his temple. The bare branches of the tree pierce the sky like swords. I was wrong. The gods, they wouldn't listen to us. They rejected our faith. What do I do now, John? What do I do? My temple, how will we live now? There is no hope left. This is the end. Leonard's words become incoherent, descending into frantic babble. You speak to the abbot, trying to console him. All is not lost. You managed to save many people. You are not sure he can hear you now. But you cannot wait for him to come to his senses. You have to take the lead, so you begin to muster your forces, getting ready to move to Empire Square. Enormous crowds of people are already on their way there, about to choose the leader of the Anazati rebellion. The sun slowly begins to set. The rebel leader, the sun is setting, the blood-red sky quavers in the hot smoke from the fire raging throughout the city. You cannot help but recall a passage from the lives of the twins, one of the many pages Mother used to quote when you were a child, and the elder said, "Lo, I have cast a flame into the world, I shall guard it until it begins to blaze." Could this be referring to today? You lead your followers to Empire Square. You walk around the rubble and past abandoned carriages and unfinished barricades. There have clearly been clashes here recently. The dust of the departed is still rising into the sky. Thousands go to despair before the Catholic commoners of Anazati. The Chancellery has been under rebel control since noon. All Imperial officers either fled or were torn apart by the mob. Scraps of rumor and gossip reach your ears as you move closer. Did you hear what happened at the Great Tree? It's the Inquisitors. They just started slaughtering folk. They grabbed them swords of theirs and started killing unarmed people. Leonard's procession made it into the temple. There was a sign from the twins. All lies. The twins got angry and destroyed them. All under the tree. The temple is gone, I tell you. Gone for good. The crowd is on edge, and this dispute will explode into a brawl. A voice from the Chancellery stairs calls for another people's court. The mob turns at once. Several last straw rebels drag a handful of well-dressed nobles out onto the steps and force them to their knees. The leader of the executioners is a preacher with a mane of unkept hair and wild eyes of a lunatic. The younger, he speaks through us. He does. He gives us the power of his law, the power to punish our enemies and to execute them. Anyone who stands in our way is an enemy of the twins themselves. People, it's time to judge these enemies of the simple folk. What is your sentence? The mob roars as loudly. The square shakes. Death, true death. The last straw rebel begin ready their guns. One of the captives gets to his feet and speaks out defiantly. Frederick Elabris, you dare call this pathetic freak show a people's court? You don't have the power. You never have, and you never will. You think you can wield the law of the twins? Bah. We'll come back, we'll make you pay. The aged nobleman's last words are drowned out by a thunderous volley of gunfire. One by one, the nobles collapse, their bodies pierced by bullets. They remain where they are. They remain where they fall. The mob gasps in amazement. There can be no doubt. The People's Court has the power to mete out true death at will. This is what will happen to anyone who dares to oppose us. All hail the Revolt, all hail our leader, all hail Sophia. Sophia's going to lead us. She's going to fend off the Legion. She's going to bring justice first to Anazati, then to the whole empire. She's going to tear down the old ways and wipe away them tyrants and nobles from the face of the world. The mob explodes into an ecstatic chant. They shout one word over and over and over again. Sophia, Sophia! The enormous throng bellows wildly, eager to see the face of its leader. Looks like I can only do not get involved. I guess that's the only choice I have. Only choice. You keep your men away from the crowd and observe the situation from afar. This matter will be decided without your interference. The door of the transferry swings open, and Sophia emerges before the thousands of people gathered in the square. Her silhouette seems to blaze in the light of the setting sun. She raises a clenched fist in the air, demanding silence. The enormous crowd instantly ceases its murmuring. The voice of the leader of the revolt rings with frigid fury. People of Anazati, today is not only the day we took up arms and cast off our shackles. Today is the first day of a new era. We will begin by taking back our city. We will eliminate anyone who dares to stand in our way. Then we will declare war against the old regime, against the entire empire. No mercy. Upon hearing these words, even the most frantic rebels fall silent. A frightened murmur ripples through the crowd. Is Sophia asking them to take on the entire world? Sophia lifts her hands high. Her eyes gleam with yellow light. The mob involuntarily grows quiet and watches its leader, rapt with attention. Sophia's golden glow is reflected in thousands of eyes. That's right, war, no mercy. Nobles, defenders of the old faith, tyrants of the old regime, they will all be executed by the people's court. Every single enemy of the Anazati revolt will be eliminated. Arm yourselves, find and execute our enemies before the Legion reaches the city, and then, when the bell tolls, go to the walls. We will unite the entire city and take our freedom by force. People echo Sophia's cry, artisans, merchants, peasants from the outskirts of Anazati. They all take up arms and join the ranks of the last straw. The crowd storms the streets, ready to unleash its wrath against the temples and noble houses alike. You lead your supporters out of the square. The time for the last battle has come. The watchmen inform you that the Legion is only a few hours away. Will the outcome of the revolt be decided in combat, or is there a peaceful solution? It all depends on the actions you take in the coming hours. The final hour. This event is a consequence of your previous actions. Conditions met, the rebel. Alright, we're going to check the Revolt tab real quick. So our army strength is pretty strong. The nobles don't really trust us. The clergy's at 2. Common folk are at 2. We're still not there yet. We don't have a victory condition. We need to have a victory condition somehow. Maybe Sophia needs to die. Maybe I should have let her die. It is mere moments from midnight. The glow of the shining pillar is barely visible behind the crimson clouds coming in from the north. But the darkness hanging above the city is dissipated by countless lights. Crowds of people holding torches, stakes burning in the squares, houses in flames. The glow of the fires can also be seen from beyond the city walls. The Legion marches down the road, inexorable, approaching the gate of a city in the throes of rebellion. The final battle draws near. All the forces that have chosen to defy the Overseer and the Empire flock to the city gate, where you have set up your base. The soldiers of the last straw assemble commoners in the squads and hastily arm them. Other rebels are led by nobles in the mantle and former members of the Legion who have joined the revolt. The priests who have sided with you will spread the word of the twins from the city walls, attempting to convince the Legion soldiers to retreat and allow the people of Anazati to be free of the lot. Preparations are also in full swing at the camp of the defenders of the Old Order, who have established a foothold in the ruins of Char Melendez's palace. Soon, their fate will be decided. Will they crush the revolt with the aid of the Legion, or be crushed themselves by the new era? There is almost no time left, just enough for one last attempt to tip the scales in your favor. Will you spend the final hour appealing to one of your allies for help, or would it be wiser to wait and muster your forces for the final battle? Will you attempt to defeat the Legion and the Overseer's army in combat, or persuade them to retreat without engaging in battle? The fate of Anazati is in your hands. So I can go see Elborn, I can ask Lenart for help, you can ask your family for help. I can gather the soldiers of the last straw. And muster your forces. Go see Elborn. It's the only option. The final hour. There are many highborn families in the Anazati that have not yet responded to Autumn's appeal to join the noble militia. They have preferred to lock themselves up in their mansions and avoid waging war against the lowborn. There could still be one over to your side, but you will need help. You will need help from a high-ranking nobleman. While there is still time, you take a few trusted men and head to the prefecture. Elborn greets you on the stairs, surrounded by gendarmes. He accepts your request eagerly. You're right, Brandt. There are many nobles who are uncertain as to what fate will befall them if the revolt wins. We need to reassure them that if we want to gain their support. With the help of the gendarmes, you send out an appeal to all noble houses you consider dependable. Elborn signs the letters to each family personally. Noble sirs, you know me as a man of honor. I have been a loyal servant to the Overseer, but my ultimate duty is to uphold the law and ensure justice for all estates. The high-handedness of the noble elite and their neglect of their lot, which is to rule the lowly estate with care and wisdom, has led the people of Anazati to the brink of despair. That is why I have sided with the revolt. I encourage you to do the same. May it be known that once our victory has been achieved, none of you will face reprisal. I, Prefect Elborn, hereby swear that anyone who supports the revolt in word or deed will obtain a rightful place in the newly transformed city of Anazati. The messengers return one by one, bring back news that noble families have agreed not to stand in the way of the revolt. Only a few of them leave Elborn's appeal unanswered. The support of the nobles will be of great value in the critical hours of the confrontation. Midnight strikes, you can hear the menacing tread of the Legion outside the city walls. The time has come. You order your people to assemble and defend the wall. Battle for Anazati. This event is a consequence of your previous actions. Revolt is greater than 6, and Sophia is leading. Battle for Anazati. The dark void beyond the walls of Anazati is lit by hundreds of lights. Heavy boots tread the soil. Armor clank. Halberds gleam. Drums beat a lively march. Lit by the glow of the torches, the Bulgarian Legion approaches the city walls. Gaius Tempest himself leads the Legion. It is the Overseer's duty to crush the revolt this very night, pacify the city before news of this incident spreads throughout the Empire. With the Overseer's hesitation to allow the revolt to last even a few hours, it could jeopardize not only his position, but even the fate of the entire province that has been entrusted to him. Before ordering an assault, the Overseer sent a message to the city. Gaius Tempest calls, "My subjects, lay down your arms this instant and open the gate. I know that you have been deceived by the insurgency. You have my word as an Arcanian ruler that I will spare anyone who aids the Legion and turns over the leaders of the revolt. Should you disobey this order from your lawful ruler, none of you will escape disgrace, execution, and eternal torment at the foot of the shining pillar. The overseer's threat enraged the rebels, an entire city rebelling against imperial rule. Nothing like this has happened for generations. Not even experts in ancient history could have imagined what is happening on the streets of Anazati at this moment. The decisions we made today led the entire city to rise against imperial rule. By nightfall, everyone who has ever suffered from noble tyranny has taken to the streets in support of the last straw. Even those who began the day cowering in terror from the overseer's wrath have now emerged from their homes and joined your cause. The commoners' fear has been eclipsed by their rage. They march through the city in droves, ready to dispense their own justice. By sunset, even the most loyal defenders of the Empire have come to realize that all hope is lost. The Loyalists have amassed considerable forces at Char Melandis' palace, but they are too late. Hordes of furious commoners storm their camp, crushing any resistance. Exhausted and demoralized by the futile fight, many defenders of the old order flee mob justice or surrender and accept their death with dignity. The moans of those trampled by the incensed throng can be heard throughout the camp. Abandoned imperial banners are hurled into the fire. "Make way," Sophia calls. The crowd grows silent and parts before Sophia. The leader of the revolt is disheveled, her clothes stained with blood, but a predatory smile lingers on her face. Here, amid fire and madness, she has finally found her place in the world. "Just look at your former masters now. Pathetic, ain't they? They thought they could put us in chains again, but they dropped their swords at the first sight of us. They lied to you for centuries, telling you it was your lot to suffer and break your back for them, but look who's suffering now. I'll give you my word, tonight we're going to execute anyone who isn't on our side, every single one of them, and then we'll feast among the ruins of the old world." The crowd roars, shaking their weapons in the air. Now the only thing standing between us and freedom is the Legion. But we'll take down the Overseer's troops just like we took down the Emperor's lackeys here in Zotti. But first, we need to get rid of the rest of the enemies and traitors in this camp. Sophia takes a glance around at sight of the recent massacre. Her merciless gaze stops at you. "Brandt, the time has come. This moment will determine your place in history. You refuse to destroy your own city. In despair, you appeal to the crowd, asking them to renounce Sophia and stop the carnage. It's as if all be oblivious to Sophia's order. You look around you paralyzed. Fires have blanketed Anazati in a critic smoke. The noble districts are in flames, as is the chancellery. The temples of the old faith are ablaze. The priests who refused the rebels are burned alive within. The bodies of those executed by firing squad lay in heaps by the walls. The cobblestones are littered with the corpses of those hurled from the windows of their own home. What has become of your city? Turn your head slowly and meet Sophia's gaze again. You will not perpetrate this madness. In despair, you address the crowd. Is this really what they want? Fire, blood, and murder? They have overthrown the nobles who have ruled over them. But who have they chosen to take their place? Sophia will only lead them to eternal bloodshed and endless suffering. They have not gathered here to revel in revenge and destruction. For the first time in history, they are in a position to lay the foundation for a new world. They have a chance to bring justice to everyone, to establish equality among the estates, to free themselves from the lots. Your voice hoarse, you finish your speech, utterly exhausted by the effort. The crowd is silent, even Sophia is bewildered by your passionate plea. For a moment, you see the frightened girl who once lived next to you, but the leader of the revolt swiftly regains her composure. Brandt's a traitor, get him. The crowd bellows, traitor, you're laughed at. Strong arms grab you, you're surrounded by a horde of furious, blood-splattered, last straw fighters. You're finished, Brandt. Execute him. Put him to trial. At Sophia's order, you are forced on your knees. The crowd cheers in bloodthirsty anticipation, eager for another execution. The gunman raises their muskets. People of Anazati, this is John Brandt, another enemy of our freedom. You know him as a comrade who fought by your side, but now, at the moment of truth, he faltered and betrayed us. What is your verdict? True death, they call. You think back on the years gone by, all the difficult decisions you had to make, all the actions that led you to this moment. Your destiny has been fulfilled. Could you have chosen differently? 1 second. Fire, Sophia calls out. A thunderous volley of gunshots rings in your ears. You head toward a blinding light. True death. Not bad for someone that never had the stats to do this. The Anazati Massacre. The revolt led by Sophia wins at the cost of relentless massacre. And true death is a curse.
Fire and blood engulfed the streets of Anazati before spreading to the rest of the empire.
Outcome of the revolt. It only takes a few days for the entire empire to learn of the revolt and events that has transpired in Anazati, the unthinkable victory of the common folk over the war engine that was the Imperial Legion, the ruthless and fearsome leaders of the rebellion, the terrifying slaughter of the nobles, priests, and anyone else who stood in the insurgents' way. By the end of the second day, the revolt has reduced the city of Anazati to a charred, smoldering ruin. Thick, acritic smoke from burning buildings and gunpowder blanketed the city. Bodies swung from ropes on every street. The results of the justice of the people's court, sprawled, abandoned, lead-riddled corpses could be found in every square. The events of those days entered the annals of history as the Great Anazati Massacre. But the rebels were not content. Having purged all their enemies in Anazati, they immediately began to march across the province. Every town and village in their way was freed from their noble rule. As the landowners fled in terror, the commoners abandoned their homes, armed themselves to fight beneath the banner of the last straw. The rebel army grew larger and stronger by the day. So began their bloody campaign of destruction. Wherever the rebels marched, the old ways of the empire collapse. They have no mercy, leaving nothing behind but smoldering ruins and the ashes of the dead. Age-old tradition burned as their ravenous flames consume town after town, city after city. The old noble dynasties are amassing their own armies beneath the banner of the Tempests to fight off this chaos. But the rebel hordes are already approaching the capital. There is no stopping them. Sophia's dream of waging war against the old world has begun. Regardless of the outcome, the empire will never be the same. Power. The bloodthirsty march of the rebellion obliterate any semblance of the rule of law in Maghera. The last straw and its followers massacre all the old rulers, leaving chaos and anarchy in their wake. It was only inevitable that the province would fall into the hands of outlaws and marauders. The old ways are gone. Can the people of Maghera build something new in their place? Church. The new faith endured the persecution of the Inquisition and survived Patriarch Cassius to become the dominant church in Maghera. Since then, most Magherian priests preach that everyone is free to find their own path to the twins. The old faith has lost its influence. It lost the influence it once had. It survives only thanks to the most uncompromising priests, the dynasties of old, and fearful commoners in the most remote Magherian villages. The wealth of Maghera. The crisis of the past years have annihilated the province's former prosperity. The fertile fields have been scorched, the mines have been abandoned, the factories stand idle with no one to work in them. The looming threat of hunger and poverty drives the people to back-breaking labor and the tried and true ways of their ancestors. Commoners flee the cities in droves and flock to villages and towns, hoping to squeeze some paltry nourishment from the inhospitable Magherian soil. The province is on the verge of starvation and turmoil. Order. Lawless anarchy replaced the old order, plunged Magra into chaos. The people of the province no longer know whose order and which laws they are to follow, and the authorities that may remain have no power to maintain order. The most reckless commoners become outlaws and thieves. The nobles feud amongst themselves. Bloodshed, looting, and wanton cruelty become commonplace in Magra, and this lawlessness soon spreads to the rest of the empire. For many years after the revolt in Anazati, people of the empire told the tale of how the elder twin himself visited the mortal world once again. He donned the guise of a common mortal to seek the truth of his own creation and settle a dispute with the younger, but no one helped him find the answer he sought. And so, the legend goes, the elder twin returned to the Shining Pillar, never to descend to the mortal realm again. What became of Felipe el Faro? Although Felipe escaped Anazati with his life shortly before the rebellion broke out, his ambitions still cost him dearly. The last straw, ostensibly a straw man of Felipe's own creation, incited a full-fledged revolt. The advisor took great pains to keep his work a secret, but his involvement in the revolt was eventually uncovered. Advisor Felipe el Faro was found guilty of treason and plotting to take over Anazati. He met his end on the gallows in the main square of Eterna. What became of Dorius Autumn? The Arcanian commander fought with all his might against the rebellious rabble he so despised, yet even a skilled swordsman such as he was doomed when he confronted with a city-wide uprising. The haughty Arcanian became Sophia's prisoner, and so his life was forfeit. He spent his final moments in inconceivable agony. Sophia did not prevent him to die until his spirit and body were completely and utterly broken. Long after the once invisible Dorius Autumn was no more, the corpse of the mighty Arcanian remained chained to the Anazati gate. What became of Augustine Elborn? When Prefect Augustine Elborn saw firsthand the atrocities being committed on the streets of Anazati, he did what he could to urge the people to stop Sophia and her henchmen by any means necessary, but he was too late. In the end, Elborn shared the same fate as the last straw's other enemies. The former judge faced death with dignity, showing no fear before the rebels' muskets. His face expressed only deep, bitter sorrow. Sir Elborn is remembered as one of the ringleaders of the Anazati Massacre and the bloodthirsty rebellion that poisoned the entire empire. What became of Father Lenart? Lenart railed furiously against the murderous executions perpetrated by Sophia. In an effort to end the massacre, he sought to reconcile the opposing factions. Lenart was labeled an enemy of the revolt for crimes against the great cause. The People's Court sentenced him to death along with its other perceived foes. He spent his final moments in prayer, tormented by the realization that he had unwillingly helped to precipitate this terrible slaughter. Lenart is remembered by the new believers as the greatest preacher of his day, but among the old believers he left an undying legacy as a nemesis of the church who violated the twins' destiny and design. Violated the twins' divine design. What became of Thomas? Dishonorably discharged from the Legion, Thomas Garrow began to roam the Empire. Their former friend did all he could to find a new place for himself, but the stigma he bore made it impossible to find a decent position. In the end, Thomas decided that he was no longer fit to bear the noble lot and settled down in a northern village. He lived the rest of his days toiling in the sweat of his brow, his former ambitions long forgotten. What became of Sophia? Ever since she was young, Sophia had been the living embodiment of hatred, the spawn of every hideous injustice committed by the Empire. She prevailed in the struggle of Anazati, and that victory finally revealed her true power. Now, Sophia casts her shadow over every corner of the Empire, her eyes blazing with yellow flame, eager to incinerate every army and province in her path. No one can stop Sophia and defeat her bloodthirsty hordes. After the victory in Anazati, the invulnerable rebel began a brutal war against the old order, a war that had seemed utterly unthinkable just a few years ago. A war of annihilation. Sophia is remembered as the woman who destroyed the blessed Arcanian Empire and burned the old world to the ground. What became of the Brandt family? The Brandt family fell apart. Rent asunder by squabbling and strife, their family home grew desolate and empty long ago. None of you ever found a way to make peace, and in the end, your old grudges were stronger than the blood you shared. You remained strangers for the rest of your life. What became of Robert Brandt? After his family fell apart, Robert Brandt left Magra for the northern provinces. There, in another city, he found employment at the local prefecture as an assistant judge. This minor post allowed Robert to eke out a humble existence, far from any power struggle or social turmoil. His family woes, once the root of his unending suffering, were finally behind him, leaving him with nothing but bitter memories. He remained alone for the rest of his life and passed away in solitude. What became of Lydia Brandt? Your mother passed away from illness long before these events transpired. Lydia Brandt was not there to see what became of her family. What became of Stefan Brandt? Having severed all ties with the family, he didn't do that, no. I'm certain he didn't. He is at home. Stefan had no reason to remain in Anazati. After abandoning his aspirations for the Brandt bloodline, he fully dedicated himself to his own ambitions. Your former brother took on a new name, Stefan Oborn. He moved to the capital and began working hard to earn himself a place at the emperor's court. But in the end, Stefan was too plain-spoken to survive in a realm of courtly intrigue. His bold and ambitious nature swiftly earned him a plethora of enemies at court. Before long, he was falsely accused of plotting against the crown. Stefan's attempts to exonerate himself proved futile, and his life and honor met an ignoble end. What became of Gloria? Gloria's new life as a nobleman's wife put an end to her youthful ardor. When she moved to her husband's home, her fervent poetry and her struggle in the name of the common folk remained in the past. As time went on, she languished more and more in the monotony of her new life. After the Brandt family cut all ties with her, Gloria felt all alone in the world and sunk deeper into melancholy by the day. Sir Jose Pieter offered her genuine love, but she never came to accept it. He tended to her with selfless, cordial care, but his efforts were all rejected. Driven by despair, Gloria eventually attempted to flee, but was caught. While Pieter never forgave her for this. Once she had been returned, Gloria's husband treated her like property, denying her any freedom whatsoever. And so Gloria remained in his noble mansion to the end of her days, surrounded by luxury, silence, and solitude. What became of Gregor Brandt? Not even in the afterlife did Gregor Brandt see the realization of his great dream. His descendants failed to have the Brandt name ennobled by the sword. The Brandt bloodline was denied its chance to become one of the empire's most eminent dynasties. Blood tide ushered in by Gregor Brandt would never have another chance at immortality. What became of you? You have made your last and most important choice. Was your death worth it? Could you have chosen a different path? Either way, there's no going back. Your fate is sealed. There is no returning from the hereafter. And so you bid farewell to your mortal life. Everything you fought for, everything you strove for, all that is behind you now. You are on your way to the Shining Pillar to await the judgment of the twins. You can no longer change the world's destiny, but the choices you made and the deeds you did have left an indelible mark. The world will remember the life and suffering of John Brandt. Well, it was a good game. It was a good game. I felt like my hands were bound for the most of it because I decided to balance my stats instead of allocating it all to one specific profession, which really limited my choices throughout the entire thing. So I think next time I will play it. I think I will play it where I have access to the consequences. This time I'll have a more informed approach to how I do it. It'll also be nice to have that information just for storytelling purposes and decision making. Not only for me, but also for the audience. I also think it's kind of interesting for me that when you go down one path, it's so specialized. Like when you go down the path of the spy, the path of the commoner, ingenuity plays such a dynamic role. Like you don't need valor, you don't need diplomacy. It's really just the ingenuity stats that you need. So I think that's just incredibly interesting. Incredibly interesting. It'll be interesting to play these out. I can see how there's different mechanics in each branch of each choice you made. Yeah, the world around you determined your destiny. There was no doubt about it. There was never a chance to do it. And where do I deserve to be? The foot of the pillar. Because I couldn't save my mother, I couldn't save the family. I gave away Gloria. I thought I was giving her to a good family, but she hated it, so definitely won't do that again. Man, it's tough. Could you have done better? Could you have, succeeded given the conditions? And be honest with yourself. You've been through the entire playthrough. You've seen what I've seen. Could you have done it? Could you have succeeded? I don't know if you could have. It was pretty harsh. It was pretty hard. And I don't know if anyone could have. Not with those stats. Not with those conditions. Alright guys, thank you for watching. I hope if you enjoyed the video, enjoyed the series, please like and subscribe and drop a comment down below. I really do appreciate it, and that's the entire reason why I make these videos, because I have a great audience. I hope you guys have a fantastic day and a wonderful week. I'll catch you in the next playthrough. We'll play it better, and we'll make smarter decisions this time, and hopefully we'll have a better ending. You guys, let me know if you'd like the audio version, if you like me saying this out loud, or if you prefer it to be silent, if you prefer to read it yourself. I'm okay with either one, honestly. It's certainly a different perspective and a different approach to each way to play through the game. And so, let me know. Alright guys, have a great one.